So we will start as usual with our Mangalacharan, invocation for mercy. Um, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udirayet Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Nanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Shivadaya Krishna Bhuta. So, happy Kartik. I hope you're all taking advantage of this auspicious month of time of the year, the month of Kartik. As you know, we started, our previous discussion was on the first day of Kartik. So today we are exactly 1 week into it. And Kartik ends on Thursday. So yeah, so we'll be doing the penultimate day of Kartik. I also wanted to apologize ahead. I actually have a sore throat and a bad cold. So I was debating, but I seem to be more or less okay. But if I do sound odd, then please excuse me, just because I have a bad cold, and these things take their own times. I've had it for about 5 days. They generally take about 10 days to go. So so we will resume our discussion from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, verse 15. Jugupashitam dharma krate anushashtata swabhavaraktasya mahan vyatikramaha yadvakya dharma itatrataha sthito namanyate tasya nivaranam janaha. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. That is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided by your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. So, in the previous verse, or in the previous set of verses, Narad Muni has been criticizing Srila Vyasadeva for misguiding people. And misguiding is kind of within quotes, because Srila Vyasadeva will not speak anything that is irreligious. But Narad Muni is saying that he's actually doing something even worse, that in the name of religion. So people trust Srila Vyasadeva, and they trust what he speaks as bona fide principles of religion. But because Srila Vyasadeva has predominantly spoken of the 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Arth, Kam, and Moksha, which is essentially of life of living piously, and then ultimately at some point of time seeking liberation. So Narad Muni is saying that people, they will just take to this path of material enjoyment. So broadly speaking, the scriptures, they offer us two paths of making advancement. One is known as pravriti, and the second is called nivritti. So pravriti marg is that of prayas, and nivritti marg is that of shreyas. So uh, in in Katha Upanishad, there is a nice verse that describes the difference between prayas and shreyas. So there it is said, Shreya cha preya cha manushyam meta dhiratu samapritya vivinakti dhirahi preyasya shreyasya bhivnate manda yogakshemat priya vrinate. The good and the pleasant come to a man. So this is Upanishadic talk where it sounds a little bewildering. So the verse says the good and the pleasant come to a man, and the thoughtful mind turns around them and distinguishes. The wise choose out the good from the pleasant, but the dull soul chooses the pleasant rather than the getting of his good and its having. So essentially, so the good is the path of Shreyas, and Shreyas is that which is good for the soul. Priyas is that which is good for the body. So, so, so the good is Shreyas and the pleasant is Priyas. So the verse is saying that both Shreyas and Priyas, they come to a person, but one who is thoughtful, he will always select Shreyas over Priyas. Now, bear in mind that the bulk of the scriptures, they do not talk about Nivritti Marg. They do not talk about Shreyas. They talk about Priyas, which is why Srila Vyasadeva is being criticized. In fact, even in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, there are many places where the Pravriti Marg is glorified. So, just for the sake of reference, because this is a topic that often comes up for discussion or debate when we are preaching or even to ourselves. Many people say that the purpose of life is to enjoy piously. And as long as I'm doing my duty, whatever the duty is, I'm making advancement. Some people will say that uh, uh, Krishna is a kind God. So why does he want us to suffer? He's happy, he's enjoying, he wants us to enjoy also. So he's dancing, he's living a carefree life, and he's leading by example. So different explanations people give, and these are, you must have all encountered it in different debates that you have either with friends or family, and the reason is they may not know the scriptures, but they may have heard of it, or they may have heard from people who have heard of it, that factually, yes, the majority of the scriptures, they talk about prayas, they talk about pravriti marg. So as I said, even in this Srimad Bhagavatam, so this is Canto 10, verse 80, chapter 84, verse 38, where Srila Vyasadeva says, an intelligent person should learn to renounce a desire for wealth by performing sacrifices and acts of charity. He should learn to renounce a desire for wife and children by experiencing family life. And he should learn to renounce a desire for promotion to a higher planet in his next life, O saintly Vasudev, by studying the effects of time. Self-controlled sages who have thus renounced attachment to household life go to the forest to perform austerities. So as you can see, this is Shreyas, because what is being told to Vasudeva is that if you have a desire for wealth, then perform sacrifices and acts of charity. So So the grahasthas, they are allowed to earn wealth, but they're also asked to give in charity. Then sex life. So renounce the desire for wife and children by experiencing family life. So when you enter into the grahastha ashram, then within the rules and regulations that are established there, you can enjoy with your wife, you can enjoy conjugal relationships, and you can grow your family. And then finally, desire for promotion to a higher planet by studying the effects of time. So this is by understanding the cycle of karma. So so this is Vasudev being instructed to follow the path of prayers. Then in the very next verse, the point is made that, dear Prabhu, so this is to Vasudev, Krishna's father, a member of the twice-born class is born in three kinds of deaths. Those owed to the demigods, to the sages, and to the forefathers. If he leaves his body without first liquidating these debts by performing sacrifices, so through sacrifices one becomes relieved of the debt to the demigods. Then studying the scriptures, one gets relieved of the debt to the sages. And by begetting children, through that one gets relieved of the debt to the forefathers. So unless one does that, unless one does these three things, he will fall down into a hellish condition. Strong words being used to justify the path of prayers. But if you, and that's a bit of a danger of reading scriptures partially. If you take the scriptures in the entirety, while the Pravritti mark is given, ultimately the superiority of the Nivritti mark is established. So it is not that Pravritti mark is impious or sinful, quite the opposite. It gives one the ability to avoid sin. But the reason that Narad Muni is criticizing it is because Pravritti mark is self-consuming. That one can stay in that path forever without making any significant real advancements. So that's why in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 verse 16, Krishna says, my dear Arjun, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. So, Pravritti Marg is satisfaction of the senses. And Krishna, this is earlier on in the third chapter, Krishna hasn't introduced bhakti, but he's already introducing nivritti to Arjuna. That don't live for the satisfaction of the sense. So back to this verse where Narad Muni is instructing Vyasadeva. He says, Swabhava Raktasya. So Swabhav means one's intrinsic. Swabhav is intrinsic, Raktasya is nature. So Swabhava Raktasya is that by one's intrinsic nature, and what is one's intrinsic nature in a materially conditioned existence? So by nature, every conditioned living entity has a propensity, so this is Srila Prabhupada speaking, has a propensity for sex life and for intoxication. And intoxication means not just consuming like alcohol, but intoxication also means addiction. So different people have different kinds of addiction. Some people have addiction to accumulating wealth. Some people have addiction to fame, followers. So by nature, every conditioned living entity has a propensity for these things. So, so Narad Muni is now condemning Vyasadeva, saying that Swabhava Raktasya, that by nature, people are addicted to material enjoyment, but on top of that, you have encouraged them to do the same in the name of religion. So, so Srila Vyasadeva will say, but wait a minute. While I have encouraged them, I have also established restrictions. I have also given them the regulative principles. And then Narad Muni would say that, true, you have given them restrictions, but you have encouraged them to follow the materialistic path, and they will not follow the restrictions. So, so he says, tasya nirvanam jana, that the nature of these conditioned souls is that, so just like a devotee is compared sometimes to a hamsa, swan, that will drink the milk and leave the water. The conditioned soul is the opposite of it, that they will drink the water and leave the milk. And Narad Muni is saying the same thing, that you have given them water in terms of this material enjoyment, and you have given them milk also in terms of the scriptural restrictions. But because these people are swabhava raktasya, they will neglect your prohibitions and simply take to material enjoyment. So when Narad Muni says dharmakrita anushastata, so he says dharmakrita, that you have given religious instructions. So he's expressing two concerns. One, best case scenario, that the person takes the instructions in their entirety. They follow the restrictions, but through that they enjoy piously. And then he says that what is the point of it? Because they will simply be cycling into this eternal spiral of material existence. So in the Bhagavatam, and this is Sutta Goswami, earlier on he says, Dharma svanushrita pumsham vishvaksena kathasuya nautpadiye dadirati shrameva hi kev. So when they're following the pravriti path, so they're dharma, they're following dharma svanushrita. So anushtita pumsham. Anushtita means according to the rules and regulations. Anushtan. So they're following it, but there is no Vishvasena Katha Suya. There is no Katha. There is no Krishna Katha. Nautpade Vyatirati, which will not create any love for Krishna. And he says, Shrameva he gave. So he says that this is useless. The second aspect that Narad is condemning is even more detrimental. He's saying that you have given them opportunities to enjoy. You have given them restrictions, but they will ignore your restrictions and simply focus on the enjoyment. So in the Vedas, you say that meat eating is permitted, but when it is offered in yajna. So what will they do? They will neglect the yajna and eat meat. You say that sex is permitted with your wife, but only under certain conditions. So they will neglect everything and say that sex is permitted. You say that grahastha can accumulate wealth if they give in charity. They will neglect the path of giving in charity and simply accumulate wealth. So he says, na manyate tasya nirvanam jana. Na manyate. They will not manyate means that they will not accept. Tasya nirvaranam jana. But all these restrictions that you're given, jana means people in general, na manyate. They will not accept these restrictions. So essentially what you have given them is that they're in a bad situation. You're given them a path to even go in a much worse situation. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that this was foreseen by Narad, and therefore he condemned such literatures. The flesh eaters will continue to perform animal sacrifice before some demigod or goddess in the name of religion, because in some of the Vedic literatures, such regulated sacrifices are recommended. They are so recommended to discourage flesh eating. But gradually the purpose of such religious activities is forgotten and the slaughterhouse becomes prominent. This is because foolish materialistic men do not care to listen to others who are actually in the position to explain Vedic rites. So So the Vedas that have been so far presented by Vyas are speaking mostly about Pravriti Marg, and Narad is condemning that approach. So one can imagine him saying to Vyas that such descriptions will only agitate the reader's mind, reacting with and increasing their sense desires. Thus, the people will become trapped in matter. Your other writings have only authorized your readers' proclivities to material pleasures and allowed them to call these proclivities religious. This was not your intention, but it is the result. Now, thinking themselves sheltered by your instructions, they will hardly care for prohibitions and will act irresponsibly, misusing their lives. So, Pravriti Marg is full of pitfalls. People are not inclined to follow Nivritti Marg. So, then what is the alternative? Vyasadeva will ask. The alternative is revealed in the next verse, which is 1.5.16. And just want to stop here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Gaurasundar Das here. Prabhu, I had a question on the on Narad Muni's viewpoint. What I understand.
Bhai Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Vrattamanasya guneranatmanas tato bhavandrasya chestitam vibhaho. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. I'm sorry, I had my laptop in mute. I don't know if there was a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you hear me? Gaurasundar Das here.
Yes, Prabhu, please continue. I'm sorry, I had my laptop on mute. My apologies.
No problem, Prabhu. Just one question if you have time.
Sure, sure.
So Narad Muni is condemning Vyasadeva for talking more about and not talking about Nivritti Marg. So my question is, Vyasadeva is trying to compile the Vedas, and he's not manufacturing anything, or he's not creating anything. He's just putting them in the written form. Isn't it that a reader will or can think that Narad Muni is trying to challenge the Vedas itself?
That's a very good question. It actually gets discussed a little later on in one of the commentaries to the verse. And the point that is made is, this point is actually made by Satsvarup Maharaj. So the point that is made is that people often, they consider the Vedas to be books of literature or to be like rule books, where they say the Veda says this, the Veda says that, so that's what must be done. But actually speaking, the Vedas themselves are vibrant and living. So just like with another person, you cannot just go mechanically and say that I have come to you, give me instructions, and the person gives instructions and then you follow it mechanically. But one's relationship with the Vedas is like one's relationship with Krishna. So the same Vedas, they talk about many things, and at different points of time, for different people, there is an aspect of the Veda that is most accessible. So as you know, there are parts of the Vedas that are also tamasic. They talk about things in the mode of ignorance, which almost appear to be, not almost, which are sinful, but the Vedas talk about it. So it's not because the Vedas want you to follow it, but because the Vedas know that there are some people who have no alternative but to take to that path. So Narad Muni's condemnation of Vyasadeva is that he has focused exclusively on this. So he is not asking Srila Vyasadeva to reject all the work that he has done in the past. He's asking Srila Vyasadeva to supplement it. So he's saying that now you should write something that will also appeal to the people who want to develop a direct relationship with Krishna. So the condemnation of Vyas is not for compiling the Vedas. The condemnation is for not talking about Krishna's pastimes. So Narad's point is that while you have talked about this, you should talk about this also. And of course, because Narad is a devotee, he's looking after his own kind of people. So he's saying that the Vaishnava Kutumba, you have ignored them. What have you done for them, my dear Prabhu? So he's making sure that they are also taken care of.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Achyuta, you had a question?
No, Prabhu. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So we have verse 1516, translation. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So, previous verse, Narad had said that Pravriti Marg is difficult because Pravriti Marg is that of enjoyment. People will either enjoy and they will continue to enjoy religiously. More likely than not, they will slip from religious enjoyment to irreligious enjoyment. So then Vyasadeva would say that we may say that, wait a minute, I haven't just spoken about Pravriti Marg in the scriptures, I have spoken about Nivritti Marg also. So Narad is saying that only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. So Nivritti Marg is there, but it is very inaccessible. So why expert personality? Because to follow Nivritti Marg, you have to be expert in the Vedas. And then he says, retire from activities of material happiness, which means that you should be renounced. So difficult to get such a person in this way. So it's almost like Srila Vyasadeva has given two paths. One path is for 99.99% of the people, and the other path is for 0.01% of the people. So what's the path? What's the point? Narad Muni is asking of giving the Nivritti Marg. So Vyasadeva may say, then what is it that you want me to do? I know these are the two paths to make progress. There's Pravritti Marg and Nivritti Marg. I have given Pravritti and you say that it misleads. I've given Nivritti and you're saying that it is difficult to follow. So tell me, what is it that you want me to do? Implicit question. So Narad offers a third alternative, which is called the Bhagavad Vidhi. So there is Pravritti Marg, there is Nivritti Marg, and there is the Bhagavad Marg, which is an alternative between Pravritti and Nivritti. So Nivritti is a path of extreme renunciation. Pravritti is a path of enjoyment as per rules and regulation. So what Narad Muni is doing is that he's combining these two. So he's saying that how about follow a path in which the soul or the conditioned soul is enjoying externally, which is Pravritti, but internally is detached, which is Nivritti. So this is the process of Yukta Vairagya. So the Bhagavad Marg is further divided into two paths. So we did Pravritti Marg, we did Nivritti Marg, we did Bhagavad Marg. Within Bhagavad Marg, there are two subdivisions. One is called Bhagavad Vidhi, which is the 9 processes of devotional service, starting from Shravana Kirtan. And the second is called Pancharatrik Vidhi. So, and this is the process of deity worship that is established by Narad Muni himself. So, Prabhupada talks about this a little bit later on, but in the Bhagavad Marg, we follow both. So, Pancharatrik Vidhi has more nuances of Nivritti Marg, because for strict worship of the deities, you have to, it's austere, that follow rules and regulations. So those of you who worship in the temple, you get a sense of that there are even though we follow a small percentage of the standards, but even they are relatively strict. And Bhagavad Vidhi, which is the 9 processes of Shravana Kirtan, they have more inclined towards Pravritti. So Kirtan is basically, you say it, you enjoy, you listen to chanting, you chant yourself. So it's more of an enjoyable process. So Narad Muni is now giving Vyas the secret sauce for success, saying that Pravritti may not work, Nivritti may not be acceptable, but let me give you something that is acceptable to the people, which is Pravritti, and which actually gives a result that is same as Nivritti, which is more from a purpose, from the point of view of internal renunciation. So that's why he says, please therefore describe the Supreme Lord's transcendental activities and guide those who remain materially attached towards spiritual realization. So this is the essence of the instruction that Narad is giving Vyas, that he says you need to guide those who are materially attached towards spiritual realization. And the way that you do it is by describing the Supreme Lord's transcendental activities. So just reading a verse in a little bit more details, that Narad begins by explaining how difficult it is to understand Krishna. So he says, Vibho Ananta Parasya. Anant means unlimited. Vibho Parasya means the unlimited Lord, unlimited Krishna. And it's only accessible through Vichakshana. So Vichakshana means a person who is very expert. And Nivritata Sukham. So here he's explicitly saying Nivritti Marg, that Krishna, who is Vibho Ananta Parasya, is only accessible to the Vichakshana who is following Nivrita Sukham, who's given up all claims for enjoyment. Now, right after that, he says, what's the problem? He says that most of the people are Pravrittamanasya Guner Anantamanas. So he says to understand Krishna, you need to be Nivrita Sukham, but people are Pravrittamanasya. So in their mind, they are attached to Pravritti Marg, and they have no spiritual knowledge. So Guner and Atmanas, that they lack spiritual knowledge. So both the problems are the way that Srila Vyasadeva has presented them, both the problems are insolvable. So Narad then says that Tato Bhavan Darshasya Cheshtisam Vibho. Therefore, Bhavan, your goodness, through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So he is breaking this. He's breaking this conflict over here. That previous verse, Pravritti is useless. This verse, Nivritti is difficult to follow. So what to do? He says, Bhavan Darshasya Cheshtitam Vibho, that to describe the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So this is the seed of the instruction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the process of Bhagavad Vidhi. So Vyas might at this point say, so what the Acharyas do is, and we see that in Bhagavad Gita, that they churn the verses for more nectar. And we see that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Bhagavad Gita, in between verses, he talks about a lot of interplay of conversations that even though is not recorded in the Bhagavad Gita, is happening at a more subtle level. So similarly, the Acharyas in this also, they have done that. So they say that after Vyasadeva hears this, he might say, but Narad, wait a minute. So I'm paraphrasing it. No, they don't say that, Narad, wait a minute, but something like that. So they're saying that, so Narad might say, Vyasadeva might say, in his, and Srila Prabhupada quotes this in the purport, in histories like the Mahabharata, of course, there are topics on transcendental topics, on subjects, along with material topics. The Bhagavad Gita is there in Mahabharata. The whole idea of Mahabharata culminates in the ultimate instructions of Bhagavad Gita that one should relinquish all other engagements and should engage oneself solely and fully in surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is taking the position of Vyasadeva. The Vyasadeva might say that, I wrote Mahabharata. And in Mahabharata, the focus of Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita, which is giving the supreme instructions. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he switches position and is speaking from the perspective of Narad Muni. So Narad Muni will say that, but men with materialistic tendencies are more attached to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic, namely Bhagavad Gita. This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narad, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relationship with the Lord and thus surrender unto him without delay. So the point that Srila Prabhupada makes on behalf of Narad Muni is that of the 100,000 verses in the Mahabharata, only 700 verses are Bhagavad Gita. And by the time Bhagavad Gita is reached, then persons are already completely absorbed in all the intrigue that's happening in the Mahabharata. So it's very easy for them to skim over the Bhagavad Gita. Or by that time, they're so anxious to see how does the political intrigue works out. What happens to Draupadi? Does Yudhishthir win the kingdom or does Duryodhana win the kingdom? And Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad Gita and they say, yeah. What happened? When does the battle start? So that is the danger of what Vyasadeva has presented. That because these instructions are embedded in that which by nature attracts the mind of materialistic people, it is easy to lose them. Then Prabhupada, in the purport, he contrasts this with the position of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Excuse me. He said, Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medicinal doses. Because it contains the transcendental activity of the Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby, they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from material desires. The expert devotees can also discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance. So contrasting Srimad Bhagavatam to Mahabharata, that both, if a devotee reads Mahabharata, Srila Prabhupada would say that if the devotee reads Mahabharata, they will see Krishna in each and every page of the Mahabharata. But they need to be shown. Very easy to lose Krishna in Mahabharata. So there are commentaries of the Mahabharata that are Vaishnava commentaries. That each and every page they glorify Krishna. And there are commentaries of the Mahabharata that also are from the perspective of karma and jnana. Because Mahabharata talks about so many things. Srimad Bhagavatam, not possible. When reads Srimad Bhagavatam, right from the very first verse, Krishna appears, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he never leaves the Bhagavatam. He is always there, in one form or the other, in form of Kapila Dev, in form of Narsinga Dev, in form of his avatars, performing various pastimes, chastising. He is always there, not just in the 10th canto. He's there in the 10th canto in his sweetest form. But throughout the Bhagavatam, Krishna is there. So that is the difference. In Mahabharata, one has to work hard to search for Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, one has to work hard to escape from Krishna. Krishna is there. Srila Prabhupada also, in glorifying Bhagavatam, he says the Bhagavatam is not just 18,000 verses. So this is in the purport for 2nd canto, 944. He says, so Srimad Bhagavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength. And however one may expand it according to one's ability. Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansion. Srimad Bhagavatam, being the sound representation of the Lord, is simultaneously explained in 4 verses. This is the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, and in 4 billion verses, all the same. In as much as the Lord is smaller than the atom and bigger than the unlimited sky. Such is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada once mentioned that his Guru Maharaj, he would spend months talking about each verse on the Bhagavatam. That on the 1st canto, 1st chapter, 1st verse, he spoke for 3 months. And then he said that he has to move on because he's running out of time. So that's the potency of Bhagavatam. So this is the first section of the chapter where the storyline is that Narad Muni has been revealing to Vyasadeva the importance of directly glorifying Krishna. And the message that he wants to give to us is that all paths, all literatures, except for bhakti, agitate the mind. Even Vedic literature that is without bhakti cannot help. So one must search for and read transcendental literature. Okay, any questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept the obeisances.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Regarding the verse that we just saw, for the people who are not very serious about spiritual aspirations, the Bhagavatam appeals to them through transcendental activities of the Lord. And it is also appealing to those who are very serious in the spiritual path. So my question is, when we suppose sometimes when we give class, we see people are more interested in the stories or the pastimes of the Lord rather than the philosophy of the Lord, philosophy about the Bhagavatam. So what should be our disposition? How do we conduct ourselves internally as well as externally to such a mass of people? Would you please elaborate on that?
Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice and practical question. So 2 things come to mind in this. One is that just the contact with Krishna is purifying. So even if a person is not interested in the philosophy, just hearing about Krishna, one develops some attachment to Krishna. That itself is purifying. So that is Bhagavatam that is acting at a superficial level. Now the important thing is it doesn't stop acting at that level. That earlier on, this was in the 3rd chapter, when Sutta Goswami was glorifying Bhagavatam, he speaks about this potency that Krishna Katha, that as people hear about Krishna, they will naturally develop attraction to him because that is the nature of Krishna, that he is attractive. I remember many years ago now actually, we went to Karoli, to the temple of the original Radha Madan Mohan. They have the they have the replica deities in Vrindavan, but the original Radha Madan Mohan is in Karoli. And it's actually the only temple where I've seen this, that people take darshan, and there are people over there who talk about the pastimes of Krishna there. They're kind of like professional reciters. They take money, but they will sit people down, and sometimes people will make requests, sometimes not, but they will spend half an hour or 1 hour, and in very colorful terms, they will talk about some pastime of Krishna. Sometimes they will talk about pastime of the deity. Radha Mohan has many pastimes, so they talk about the deity. And I was sitting there and observing it, and I was noticing that most of the people who actually come to Karoli are villagers, just because it is inaccessible. It's about I think 60 miles from Jaipur, but the road is very, very bad. So it takes almost 5 hours, and I mean the journey feels like 10 hours, because by the time you reach there, you've been shaken so many times. So it's a long journey. So it's mostly there. Most of the people I saw were villagers there, but I could see that they had so much of enjoyment that they would laugh at the funny pastimes, and they must have probably heard all of that before. But they were so much absorbed in the whole thing. So that itself is glorious. Second thing is, and this is something that Guru Maharaj says, is that one should use these pastimes just like a physician gives a medicine. So the outside coating is sweet and sugar, and inside there is a pill. So people that do not like the bitterness of the pill, but they'll take the sweet part. So an expert physician will put the capsule, and inside that will be the medicine. So when we discuss pastimes, we talk about the pastime, people get engaged in it, and while they're engaged, then we explain some basic aspects of the philosophy. Like when you're talking about Prahlad Maharaj or Hiranyakashipu, it's an exciting pastime. People hear it, but then, one can say that Krishna protects the devotees that surrender to him. So not a lot of philosophy, not a lot of verses, not a lot of rigorous analysis of that position. But after having heard the pastime, their hearts are open, their ears are open, and an expert preacher then slips in some basic philosophy. And to some extent, Prabhu, this is also a personal thing. Different devotees have different styles. But these are the two things that come to my mind.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Gaur Das here, Prabhu. Just one question. Vyasadev, if I understand right, Vyasadev, along with the Vedas and the Upanishads and Brahma Sutra, he also compiled the Puranas. The Puranas in three modes: the Puranas in Tamasic Puran, Rajasic Puran, and the Sattvic Puran. So isn't it that the Sattvic Puran and other Purans, they have Krishna, maybe not Krishna's pastimes particularly, but Krishna as a Vishnu, the different 10 incarnations of Vishnu, and even the Sri Sampradaya people, they rely more on Vishnu Puran than Bhagavat Puran. How can Narad Muni say that Vyasadev didn't glorify? Is he trying to say that he didn't glorify Krishna in specifically, or is it Vishnu Tattva in general?
So the focus of this so-called chastisement of Srila Vyasadeva is because he did not glorify Krishna and the path of bhakti to Krishna. So, as you know, in the scriptures, Krishna appears very rarely. The mentions of Krishna in the scriptures is not abundant. Maybe Gopal Tapani Upanishad, there is mention of Krishna. Vishnu Puran is almost entirely devoted to Lord Vishnu. And Mahabharata, Krishna appears. Bhagavad Gita, he appears. So that is one area of concern to Narad Muni. The second is that if you read Vishnu Puran or some of the other Upanishads in which Krishna does appear, the position of Krishna is generally more in the context of Karma Kanda. So I don't know if you've attended, but this is from the Purans, the pastime of what is it called? It's called, so I forget the name, but we used to get invited to it. This is a the family, they will call, and then the person will be from Vishnu Puran, they will talk about, I think, what is it called? Narayan something.
Srimad Bhagavad Katha?
Satyanarayan Katha. Right. Thank you, Prabhu. So if you go to the Satyanarayan Katha, then Lord Narayan is glorified, but in what context? That somebody went and wanted a husband, and Lord Narayan gave him a husband, and then after getting a husband, she disrespected Lord Narayan, so Lord Narayan killed her husband, and then she went again, and then Lord Narayan gave the husband back, and then there was a king, and he lost his kingdom, and then he did Satyanarayan Katha, and then he got his kingdom back, and then his son did something. So it's very, very strongly karma. It's not that Lord Narayan is not there, but from a different perspective. So that's what Srila Vyasadeva has done, that even when he has presented, firstly, he hasn't presented Krishna directly, but even when he has presented, he is presented in the context of Karma Kanda. Now, he hasn't presented him wrongly. Krishna does make himself available to Karma Kanda, but the path of bhakti is something that at some point of time, somebody needs to call out. And that's what Narad Muni is basically bemoaning. That you have done so much, why haven't you called out bhakti specifically? Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Saran Prabhu.
We learn in Nectar of Devotion about Mukti and Bhukti, where we say that if somebody's heart is too hard, like the Gyanis, it's difficult for them to take to Bhakti. And those that is too much into material enjoyment, also they want to enjoy, they don't want to get into Bhakti. And it has to be just in the middle so that they are good candidate for Bhakti. It's not a question, it's just a comment about what we learn in Isopa and in Nectar of Devotion.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. That's a relevant point that you're making. Thank you. Okay, so the next verse is actually a very important verse, especially for devotees. So Narad Muni recites it over here. This is 1517. Katva swadharmam charanambujam mare bhajanna pakvota pate tato yadi Yatrakavadram abhudamushyakim kovartapto bhajatam swadharmata. One who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So Vyasadeva might say that all this work that I have done, it should amount to something. So come on, Narad, you've been criticizing me for such a long time, but I have done something that can help somebody. So you see how Narad is. So he's a pure devotee and a pakka devotee, in the sense the devotees are like lambs and they're like lions. So they're humble and they're meek, but they're uncompromising in their support to Krishna and bhakti. So he's saying, what are you talking about, Vyas? Let me compare these two methods for you. I'm talking about Bhakti Marg, you're talking about Pravritti Nivritti Marg. In Bhakti Marg, if one fails, then he does not lose anything. In the Pravritti Nivritti Marg, if one succeeds, he does not gain anything. So he's putting it in dire contrast over here. So in 3 verses, so this is 17, 18, and 19, Narad will talk about the secure position of a devotee in relationship to Krishna. And the message that he wants to give to Srila Vyasadeva and to us is that one should not waste time looking for material happiness, but one should look for opportunities to execute bhakti, which is lasting. So these 3 verses, and this is a verse that is one should memorize, especially very good for preaching. So it contrasts the position of a unsuccessful devotee with a successful non-devotee. So one may successfully follow Karma Kand and do all the rituals that are needed. One may successfully follow Gyan Kand and control the senses and follow the scriptures. But where is the safeguard from falling? So we see that there are exalted yogis, and just in a moment they fall. The Vishwamitra, he was performing austerities for so many years, thousands of years. And then he heard the Nupur, the ankle bells of Menaka. He did not even see her. And for 100 years, he gave up his sadhana. 100 years he spent with her. He had a daughter with her. And then because of Purva Ras, he was re-established. We see that again. We see that in Shabarmuni. He was performing severe austerities underwater. And then he saw fishes mating. And one might say that how fickle the mind is. There's nothing more different from humans than fishes are. And how can one get agitated by seeing fishes mating? But he did. He saw the fishes mating. He gave up his tapasya. He came out. He married not 1 woman, 2 women. He married 100 women at the same time. But look at the position of Ajamil. Look at the position of Chitraketu. That they were immature in the path of devotion. They committed offenses and they fell down. But ultimately they were reinstated. So Srila Prabhupada, he writes in the purport, it so happens sometimes that one surrenders himself unto the service of the Lord by some temporary sentiment. And in the long run, due to so many other reasons, he falls down from the path of service by undesirable association. Then he goes on to say that in spite of all this, The stress is given here to surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord, even if there is a chance of falling down. Because even though one falls down from prescribed duties of devotional service, he will never forget the lotus feet of the Lord. Once engaged in devotional service of the Lord, one will continue the service in all circumstances. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that even a small quantity of devotional service can save one from the most dangerous position. So does anybody remember this verse?
Swalpamapi dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat.
Neha Bikramashasti.
Thank you. So I think it's 240. Neha Bikramashasti pratvayo na vidyate swalpam apiyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So Srila Prabhupada is he doesn't refer to the verse, but he talks about it as translation, that small amount of it. So in a way, success and failure, in the material sense, they are useless because everything is a failure. Even if you're materially successful, ultimately, it's a failure. And similarly, success and failure in a spiritual sense is useless because everything is a success. That even a devotee who has failed is still successful. Arjuna asked this question to Krishna, right? That in chapter 6 about an aspiring yogi. And Krishna says that he will get another opportunity. So that is the protection that Krishna gives. So just a little bit of debate on this topic. That supposing you go to somebody and make this point, that the process of bhakti will protect even an immature devotee, whereas even a mature practitioner of the Vedas is unprotected. And the other person might say, quoting from Manu Samhita, and this is quoted in Mahabharata, he might say, Dharma eva hatu anti, dharma rakshati rakshita, tasmad dharma nahantavyo mano dharmo hato vadit. He might say, what are you saying? In Mahabharata, it says, Dharma eva hatu anti. That if you harm Deva, Dharma will harm you. And Dharma rakshati rakshita. If you protect Dharma, which means by following Dharma will protect you. So therefore, tasma dharma nahantavyo. That's why never harm Dharma. Mano dharma hato vadit, then Dharma will not harm you. So it is clearly understood that one should follow Dharma. So in response to that, we can say that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Savai Pumsa Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Adhok Sajay. So this is 126. That fine, there is this Dharma, but then there is Paro Dharma, which is Yato Bhakti Adhok Sajay, Aitukiya Pratiyata Yayatma Suprasiddhi. We can quote from Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharma Pratyajaya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraj. Krishna himself is saying that abandon all varieties of religion. We can quote from the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse 28, that Vedesu Yadeshu Tapeseshu Cheva. Translation is, if a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by following devotional service, he attains all this, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. We can quote Narad Muni from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto. This is one of Prabhupada's oft quoted line. Yathataror mula nishachanena tripyante tat skanda pujopashaka. Prano paragya thendriyam tatheva sarvam achutaje. That just by pouring water in the root of a tree, the whole tree is energized. Just by eating, all the senses are energized. Just by worshipping Krishna, just by tatheva sarvaham achutejya. Achuta is Krishna, ejya means worship. Achutejya, just simply by worship of Krishna, tatheva sarvahanam. Sarvahanam means worship of everybody else. So worship of everybody else, Tatheva Sarvaham Achutecha, is accomplished by the worship of Krishna. In the 11th canto, 5th chapter, Narad Muni again, I'm sorry, not Narad Muni, the Navyogendras, they speak to Maharaj Nimi, and this is again a verse that Prabhupada repeats, Deva Rishi Bhutab Nrinam Pritram, that, O king, one was given up all material duties and taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, who offers shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even one's forefathers who have passed away. Since all such classes of living entities and part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one who has surrendered to the Lord's service has no need to serve such persons separately. So this is a powerful verse because in Karma Kand there are so many things that you have to do. You have to offer oblations to the Pitras, you have to you have to be relieved of your debt to so many personalities, and you're indebted to the king, to the society. But now this verse, the Navyogendras, they assure that one who has taken shelter of Mukunda automatically is relieved of all the debts. Third canto, Devahuti, she says to Lord Kapila, so this is Ahubat Swapaka Togariyan. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the family of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your lordship, they must be bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. So this is another point the devotees make, is that the reason all this is not needed because all this has been done. So all the aspects of taking bath in holy places, giving sacrifices, performing austerities, when has done all that, then at that point one becomes qualified to chant the holy name of the Lord. So there is no need for the person to do all that. The flip side is that if somebody is doing all that without worshipping Krishna, it is useless. So the flip side is dharma svanashruta pumsham vishvak. So we did this verse that if one is following dharma perfectly, nautpadev yatirati. If it does not invoke love for Krishna, akshrameva hi kevalam. It is completely useless. In the 11th canto, 5th chapter, Ya esham purusam shakshad atma prabhavam ishvaram na bhajante avajanati sthanam bhrashta patantyata. That members of the 4 varnas and the 4 ashrams that fail to worship or intentionally disrespect the personality of Godhead, they will fall down from the position into a hellish state of life. So the point is made is that they are they are practicing members. So they are following the Swadharma. That they are practicing members of a varna and an ashram. But if they fail to worship or disrespect Krishna, then sthanad bhrashta patantyada. That not only sthanad is their position, they fall down from their position, but patantyada, they fall into hellish state of life. 11th canto, verse 20. As long as one is not satiated by the fruitive activities and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravana Kirtam, Vishnu Swaranam, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. So this is devotees talking about the inferiority of the Pravritti Nivritti Marg. That people who are still thirsting for fruitive activities will follow this mark. But once they have satiated, then they will perform the path of bhakti. And Madhavacharya, so Srila Prabhupada quotes this in the purport. Madhavacharya says that all the demigods are extremely inimical to one who does not respect Lord Vishnu. Such a person is pushed into the darkest region by the Lord as well as by the demigods. So the demigods that you're worshipping, they will push you to the hellish regions because you're not worshipping their worshipable Lord. So these are points that are made to support the Bhagavad Marg in contrast to Pravritti Nivritti Marg. Okay, so I'll stop here, see if there's any questions, comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. On the last, especially the obligations given or others, the Shraddha ceremony, they are very particular about it. There is a monthly the Amavasya time, they do the Pindadan, and then do and this thing in particular, it happens in a very elaborate manner in my house. So is it okay that even though we continue in this devotional service, Krishna consciousness, the family tradition, is it okay to do that in the mood of pleasing Krishna and not completely reject it?
Yeah, thank you.
Because there's a lot of opposition from the house. I don't do it.
Yeah. So it's okay to do it. It's not okay to take shelter of it. So there's a difference between the two. That because of different impositions, sometimes family traditions, sometimes social requirements, we do certain things, and we should because it's not the nature of a devotee to create disturbances in the mind and the hearts of others. So we should do it, but we should not take shelter of it. Like when we do Shraddha ceremony, we should not think that by the performance of the Shraddha ceremony, my pitras are getting liberated. The reason they are getting liberated because of we are performing devotional service. So where do we take shelter? That is important. And depending on our situation, we have a devotee in the congregation who's a very pakka Brahman from South, and he does a lot of these karma kand, but he dovetails it all to Krishna. Like for the Shraddha ceremony, I remember I was once talking to him, and I think Sharang Prabhu would even I'm talking about Chakrapani Prabhu. So, and then he explained that when you do the Pindadan, then there are verses that you can recite, in which basically you're indicating that. So before offering to your pitras, you offer to Krishna. And then before you do Pindadan, then you recite the verses to show that you're actually offering them Krishna Prasad. Okay. So you're doing the ceremony, but you're also helping your ancestors. Normally they would just get food. So the purpose of Pindadan is to keep your ancestors alive. They get food, and it also keeps them in Pitralok. So if you don't do Pindadan, they fall down from Pitralok. But if you do it, they stay in Pitralok. Pitralok is the lowest of the heavenly planetary system, just above Earth. So that's the best case scenario that you can do through Pindadan. But if you do it in this way, that you do Pindadan, but you offer to Krishna and then you offer to them, then by honoring the remnants of prasadam, they get spiritual benefit. They're able to make devotional practices. So it may not be possible in all practices. In this particular case, because you gave this as an example, I was sharing in some cases it's not possible. And there at least we still do it because of social reason. But in our mind, we don't take shelter of it. We don't understand that this is the path for our liberation, or this is the path for the liberation of our family, but we do it as something that we're doing as service to Krishna's servants. Okay, thank you. So 1518, and after that we'll stop. Taseva heta prayatet kovida nalabhyate yad brahmatam uparyada tallabhyate dukhavad annita shukam kalena sarvatra gambhira rahasa. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for the purposeful end, which is not obtained even by wandering from the topmost planet Brahmalok down to the lowest planet Patalok. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time. Just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire. So the previous two verses, they glorified bhakti over all other purposes. In this verse, Narad Muni, he continues the glorification of bhakti. So he starts the word with, he says that tasyeva heta. So tasya means for that purpose. What purpose? So the context is the previous verse. So previous verse he was talking about the process of bhakti. So he's saying that now for that purpose, people who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined. This is Kovida. Kovida means people who are intelligent or expert. So one who knows things as they are. That's the literal meaning of Kovida. So they should achieve that which is not achievable by wandering from Brahmalok to Pitralok. So na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadha. So the reason these two lokas are said is because by pious activities one can go to Brahmalok, by karam followed by gyan followed by tapa, one can go to Brahmalok, and through following karam kand one can go to Patalok. So either one is following karam kand or gyan kand or tapa kand, they are basically traveling from all the 14 planetary systems between Brahmalok and Patalok. But a person who in this wandering becomes intelligent. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he says, this is chapter 7, he says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyante vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. That after many births and deaths. The births and deaths means a birth in Brahmalok. Brahmalok is a little bit of exception. If you take birth in Brahmalok, then more likely than not, you will go back to Krishna. But any other lok, you take birth, you die, and you come back. So after many such births, then the person, he becomes Kovida. He becomes discriminating, and then he takes to the purpose of bhakti. So the destination that is available through bhakti is not available through karma, gyan or tapa, through which a person can go to one of these loka. So Prabhupada says, and this is in a different purport, but he talks about the same point, that the living entity wanders throughout the various types of bodies and throughout different planets, and thus he is like King Puranjan, who traveled all over the world looking for a suitable place to live. So Prabhupada mentions that the real reason that the Jiva Brahma Brahmana, that the Jiva is moving all over the Brahman, is because he's looking for happiness. So they go to one lok, they see. So we see that in the quest of the Gopakumar, that he's traveling so many places. Every place he thinks that he goes, he'll get some happiness. But the reason that they don't stay there is because there is no happiness there. So interesting thing to note in the verse is Narad is equating Sukham with Dukham. He is saying they are both the same. Why are they same? He says because they are automatically attainable. He says they are labhyate. And how are they automatically attainable? From anyatha. So anyatha means that from previous work and kalena, in due course of time. So he's essentially talking about the cycle of karma. That's how karma works. That in due course of time, because of the activities that you've done and that you have done, without striving for it, you will automatically get happiness, you will automatically get distress. So the point he's making is that all this that you're striving so much to get, you get it whether you want or not. And even the best case scenario is if you're getting, so what if you're getting unlimited happiness? Even then, you're contaminated by the sin of rejecting Krishna. So that misery still remains. So the point that Narad is making is that unless one takes to bhakti, one will continue to wander the universe in the quest for happiness, which he says is automatically attainable. So I'll read a little bit of purport. This is not purport, this is from a lecture. By performing pap and punya, one goes up or goes down in this world. But Lord Krishna says, don't be attracted by pious activities, neither go down to abominable condition of life. Simply capture me. So one can say that, then we shall do nothing. Yes, practically it is said, do nothing, become a karma. Not by inactivity, but by not being attached to the activity. Whatever is obtainable by you or destiny, you will get wherever you are. Take to Krishna consciousness, you will get it. How shall I get it? Kalena sarvatra gambhir ramhasa. By the arrangement of eternal time, everything is attainable. Happiness and distress comes automatically without endeavor. So don't try to be elevated in happy condition of life or distressed condition of life. Try for Krishna consciousness. Then your energy will be properly utilized. And so this is Prabhupada in a lecture. And then he gives an example of an uneducated rich businessman and an educated poor doctor. That a doctor studied so hard, but because his practice did not do well, he is poor. And then there is an uneducated person and he started a business and the business did well and he is very, very rich. Practical examples, we see that. Bill Gates was a dropout from college. And there are people with 1 PhD, 2 PhDs who are struggling to make a living. So it all happens on its own. So Prabhupada's concluding remarks is, anyone who is expert and intelligent, he should know that destiny cannot be changed. But he can change his position with reference to his relationship with God. That is real intelligence. And that is where one must make efforts. They must strive for Golokera Prema Dhana Harinam Sankirtan. This Harinam Sankirtan, this Krishna consciousness movement is not anything of this material world, either of the higher planetary system or the lower planetary system. It is Golokera Prema Dhana. It is the happy mode, not this mode of passion or goodness or ignorance. The happy mode imparted from Krishna Loka, Goloka. So I'll stop over here and see if you have any questions or comments. If not, I will give you 6 minutes of your time back. Thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhayaschet kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanand. Hari Hari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.